All right, let's finish up our key vocab with our last one, which is social structure. So let's look at our first word, which is patriarchal. So let me put that right there into the Google. Patriarchal. And yeah, let's go to images for that. There we go. Patriarchal basically means a society dominated by men. So here's the amazing thing. When we were hunters and gatherers in the Paleolithic era, society was more or less equal between men and women. But once we started planting seeds and building villages, it became more patriarchal, where males or men started dominating. Historians have theories for this. One is just because of brute strength. Men could be soldiers to defend the crops, the surplus of crops that were there. And they would rank up higher and start becoming like generals and war leaders. Another is that once we began farming and it became more physical, labor became valued. Men became valued because of physical strength, where women weren't as physically strong. Part of the reason for that being that women have babies. So they don't have necessarily the same time to develop the exact same physical strength. These are theories, not 100% truths, but we do know that society became more men who were dominant. So patriarchal is men being dominant, and that is definitely under social structure. Let's look at our next word, which is social stratification. And let's go see what images we get for that. Nice. So social stratification, all of these images behind me, work out pretty well. Social stratification means basically breaking up society into different levels, where we have like the rich and the poor, people with power and less power. So if we look at basically social stratification, people divided up into different levels or hierarchies, more power on top, less power on the bottom. And in this time period, there would have been slaves who would have been on the bottom. Egypt, Mesopotamia, many of these areas had slaves who were on the bottom level of the society. So you would see social structure for Egypt, for example. Here you have slaves, then farmers, then artisans, then merchants, scribes who wrote, soldiers, government officials to the pharaoh. So social stratification, breaking up society into levels and hierarchy. People with more power on the top, less power on the bottom. Pharaoh was basically believed to be a god king. Slaves had almost no rights at all. And again, that goes under social structure. Now, let's look at this word artisans and see what this word artisans means. So let's go look that one up. And we have artisans. Artisans are people who make handcrafts, who make crafts, or who make pots, art by hand. So an artisan is a skilled worker who makes something by hand. And artisans were one way in the social structure, was one way to move up, was to be a skilled worker. Artisans are skilled workers, and they are part of our social structure. And now let's get to our next word, and our last word actually for this part, and that would be merchants. And merchants are basically people who buy and sell. So merchants are people who buy and sell. And in this era, we will see the beginning of trade after the Neolithic Revolution, where people basically trade goods back and forth. Basically, you have wheat and I need rice, so we'll trade our products back and forth so we can both have these. And that's what merchants do. They sell things back and forth. And they are also on the social structure, and they're a little bit higher than farmers usually because they're moving things back and forth. All right, those are all of our words we have for our first part of our vocab.